Hi, my name's Covey, and I'm going to talk about manual angle matching in Blender. Now, I make little replicas of the Thomas the Tank Engine props, and a lot of what I have to do is figuring out all like the dimensions and such like that. So it's really important for me to be able to like get that all down. And one of the tools I have at my disposal to do that is angle matching. So what this involves is pretty much taking a picture of like the original model or whatever you're trying to like duplicate or replicate, and then lining the perspective of a camera up against a 3D model of a replica, and then kind of flicking between the two images and seeing, oh, is there anything that's changed between these? Anyway, I'm going to show you how I do it in Blender, and there is a disclaimer, I'm not a Blender model maker. Like, I know one thing in Blender, and it's this. So if you know anything about Blender, you're probably going to, like, cringe at how I do a lot of it, and, like, all the, I don't know, shortcuts I'm missing or something. But I do know this. I do know enough to get this to work. And I hope to share some of that knowledge, because if more, Gauge-1 people like me who make these replicas can do this, I think we can all have better results in our stuff. And this is obviously applicable to other like hobbies and such, and also other types of Thomas models. If you make like 3D models, you might already know how to do this because you're probably better at CAD than me. But yeah, I'm just going to show you how to do it. Okay, so to start, I'm going to delete this box, and I press the X key and I just go delete. And we're going to want to import the model, and because I've modeled this in Fusion 360, I've exported it as an OBJ file, and that's in my downloads. So we're going to scroll all the way down. Here he is. And then this is the OBJ file. Blender's not great with scaling, so he's imported quite big, but that's okay. We can scale him down. It doesn't really matter unless you have like the camera data, which I'll talk about later, what scale your model is, but I should actually confirm that is 90 degrees. Hang on, let me go back. Let's go rotate X. This is just in this little panel here. When I've selected like the Thomas, I can change like the rotation and the movement. So I'm going to set that to 0. I don't know why it defaults to 90. And I'm going to set the scale down to 0.1 just to make it a little bit more manageable. I'm going to do that manually for all of them here. So that's just in this little tab, which is the Object Properties tab. Alright, I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to select up here, just so I can select off Thomas. And then I'm going to assume you know how to like move around in Blender. It's different on everything, but to like pan like this, I'm holding down the Shift key and the middle mouse button, and holding down the middle mouse button rotates like this, and then you can zoom with the middle mouse button. I would highly recommend using Blender with a mouse. I don't know how I would do it otherwise. Okay, so this is what we've got. The model's imported just like this, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to press Shift, or hold down Shift and then press A on my keyboard. This brings up the Add menu, and I'm going to add a camera, just like this. And now you can see over here, this is kind of the, I don't know, all the objects we have in our scene. We have a light, which we don't really use, the mesh, the Thomas, and then this camera. So I'm going to open up this underneath thing here, and I'm going to name this one, which I just do by double clicking. I know the image I want to match. I've already got that one saved to a folder on my desktop. So we go S1 promo. I'm just going to name the camera, because if you're angle matching multiple shots, it's good to have this camera named. And then I'm going to press, it's a little button above tab. It's like the one with the wavy line on it. To me, for me on my computer, it's left of the number 1. So I'm going to hold that down. I'm going to navigate to view camera. I believe it's also numpad 1 is the shortcut, but I don't have a numpad on my laptop, so that's the way I do it. Okay, so now that you're in the camera, you want like the options bar here. I think the shortcut for this is Command or Control N. No, wait, sorry, that's a new document. I forgot what it is. I hope it shows up just here for you guys, like on the little side bar. Anyway, we can look at item, we can look at view, and we can look at transform. The things we want to look at is clip start and clip end. I just changed the clip end to like, I just pressed 9 a bunch of times. Basically, this means if you zoom out too much, the model just disappears out of view. I guess this is something for like saving your graphics card when you're rendering like a large scene. But for us, yeah, we just want to put that as high as possible. Otherwise, if you zoom out too far sometimes, the model's going to disappear. So we also want to check under view lock here, camera view. And before I do that, I'm actually going to zoom in with my middle mouse button, just so this frame fills up a lot of the screen. And then, yeah, select camera view. Now we're going to zoom out, and you can see the camera was just really far in, which is why you couldn't see Thomas. But now you can just like pan around like this, and I'm holding again the middle mouse button to do this, and now I'm holding middle mouse and shift to go like this. Yeah, so here we go. What I'm going to do now is I have to make sure that the camera is selected for this. So I'm selecting the camera, and it's the green one down here. And then I'm going to go into this setting, the data panel. And what we're going to do is we're going to select background images just here. We're going to open that up. We're going to go add image. We're going to go open. So this is where you navigate to here. We want to go, put in Thomas angle match. Here it is, and open image. Annoyingly, the default for this, it gives you a bunch of options here, is that it's stretched. So I'm going to change that to fit, because the whole purpose is to fit it if it's stretched. I'm going to change the depth to the front. I'm going to lower the opacity just a little bit like this, so I can see both models comfortably. And then I can adjust the rotation and the scale. And we use the rotation a little bit while we're angle matching, but the scale, you just really want to like play with this until it's a good size on your screen, because if it's too small, it's going to be really hard to match. And the offsets, just move it up and down. So maybe, honestly, I think this is pretty good, and I'm just going to scale him up a little bit more. And yeah, there we go. Okay, so because we've locked the camera to view, what this means is when we move around our model, it's going to move the camera essentially. So what we do now is we have to meticulously and manually angle match the exact perspective seen on this image. And a few notes about selecting a good image to angle match. Cameras kind of have a distortion to them, and while Blender copies that in terms of the depth of field, what Blender doesn't really capture is towards the edge of a frame, things are stretched kind of outwards. They're wider in width towards the edge of a frame. So in selecting an image of Thomas, or whatever you're angle matching, it's good to find something where he's kind of central and there's a lot of the frame around him as well, because I feel if he's too close to the edge, or if the frame's cropped too close around him, I've just cropped this photo, this isn't the raw camera image, but yeah, so images where the subject is in the middle and there's adequate space around the subject as well tend to angle match better. Okay, so the three kind of things that you're controlling here are going to be the zoom, the actual like positioning, so I actually have to position him right, like approximately that, and the perspective, the focal length. So what the focal length is going to be is, the default is 50, but a higher focal length essentially means objects in the background, it's more perspective, it's more orthographic, and if you know the difference between orthographic and perspective, you'll get this, or anything about how cameras work. But with, a higher number for the focal length, objects in the back are bigger or more true to their real size, and objects in the front, well, they're the same, they're more true to their real size. Whereas if I turn this right down to, say, like a 29mm lens, and then I zoom in, you can see how objects closer to the camera are bigger compared to objects at the back, and that's actually how your eye sees. And of course, no image is going to be perfectly orthographic. That would make angle matching very easy. So essentially, you have to just play with these settings until, the amount it's zoomed and the position of everything, until an angle matches right. So I'm going to go through and we're going to do this with Thomas. I'm going to collapse these menus. We're going to do this with Thomas, and the first thing I'm doing is I'm just positioning him, and I'm just being like, okay, that's roughly the right angle, right? And you can see this front buffer beam is like way too slanted compared to the prop, and what that tells me is he's too perspective. And you'll see if I increase this and zoom in back out, that seems to match a little bit better now. So I think, the front beam is obviously really, and this is another really handy tool. This is the zoom, and you can kind of click on this and then drag it up and down for a much more precise zoom. You can kind of see here the focal length still is not right at all. Like, the front's quite small and the back looks roughly about the right size there. So again, we're going to give it more perspective. So maybe something like 74. Going to zoom in again, and it really is just a game of trial and error until you get the right kind of lens and everything. but it's a bit of a pain, so I'm going to speed this up until I get it. But yeah, I'm essentially just playing with these tools. Like, I'm going, oh, less focal length, and you get the hang of it after a while. I mean, this is all the kind of knowledge you need to be able to do it. But it's a tricky one. It's really, really hard. I'm also going to use the rotation here. I think if we rotate the image slightly like that, it's going to make it easier to match. So don't be afraid to play with that. So you can see it's lining up alright now. Not perfect, I'm going to keep tweaking it, but what I do is I move the opacity like up and down, kind of like this, so I can see, oh yeah, that's pretty close, or need to change this, or whatever. And you know, if things in the back look too big, then the lens is like too orthographic or too high of a number here, and I turn it down a bit and readjust. And I like to try and line up the running board, the length and the width for that, because normally on these models we know that dimension. Either we've measured it off one of the props or something, or like, you know, it's sometimes easier to figure out. And then I like to reference off the boiler position as well, because it's like very, very central. And then I just kind of check, does everything else line up? And yeah, so it's definitely an interesting kind of test. And the amount of times I've thought, oh god, I can never angle match this picture is insane. And then you just keep playing with it, and then eventually you figure it out, and you're like, damn, why didn't I think of that before? But no, it's definitely fun, and it's a good way to kind of authenticate, okay, is my model right, and are things relative to each other? Like, it's hard to build a model straight off something like this because you don't really know any of the dimensions, and it relies on kind of known dimensions to work. But yeah, you can definitely verify, oh, have I made any like big mistakes here? And yeah, I'm angle matching all my CADs now, and it's going really well. Yeah, as you can see, like this tallness, he's pretty close. Like, I can't really pinpoint. I mean, the bunker slats, they're a bit thin. Like, you can see kind of relative to the original, tiny bit thin. And that's sort of one thing that this is good for. Like, just kind of, yeah, it's really powerful, but it shouldn't be your only tool, obviously, like everything ever. But I'd say, I mean, I'm going to keep tweaking it a little bit more, but this is pretty damn good now. It's just not lining up at the front there. So, you know, I keep adjusting the angle. At this point, I'm pretty convinced I have the perspective right, because, like, the cab and such lines up at the back. And that's always a positive sign. I'm going to scale that up just a little bit. So it's really just angle and scale that I should be working on now. That might be perfect. I mean, I say it might be perfect, and then I keep making changes. That's pretty damn good. Yeah. Wow. I'm gonna move the front just down a bit. So there you go. Angle matching in Blender. And when you want to get out of this, when you've had enough of looking at this image, the beauty of this is you can kind of do it multiple times, or looking from multiple angles. So I'm going to go like this. I'm going to hold the little button above tab, and I'm going to select view camera again, and that's going to take me out of it. And then I can do the same process. Shift and A, add another camera, camera 02, name the second image, and then go into this camera, click on this camera, hold that little button above tab, view camera, and then, well, guess what, you start all over again. And you can angle match another picture, add a background image, etc. And then if I want to switch back to this one, I just have to click between the cameras, which is really, really handy. Don't forget to save your document. I'm really bad at that, so don't lose all your work. But yeah, it's really cool. It's a really powerful tool. Like, just figuring out, yeah, as I said, once you know all kind of your base dimensions, just figuring out everything relative to each other, it's fantastic, and just making sure there's no like massive oversights on your model, because I know how it can kind of get when you're just working on something and you're just like, oh my god. Yeah. But there you go. I'm happy with that. I wish you all the best. It'll be fun. I hope people are able to do something with this, because it's so good, it's so powerful, and I wish I knew about this like a few years back, because I've made some models with very fatal errors, and could have been avoided if I'd used a technology like this. So, thank you all. Cheers.